Very good evening to all of you to the ICFAI's WiseViews interactive webinar series. This is the 24th webinar we are organizing today. This evening, we have our distinguished guest, Mr. Ajoy Chawla, who is the CEO of Jewellery Business, Titan Company Limited. He has agreed to speak in spite of his busy schedule. Thank you, Mr. Ajoy, for spending your time here with us this evening. Man, most welcome.
Thank you, Sudhakar.
Yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to have yet another exciting show, conversation, questions and answers, and loads of insights that we can take away from this session. I request all of you to mute your mics and pay attention to the conversation that's happening, and we can focus on what is the most important takeaway. We can focus on the questions that we are posing, and without any disturbance, we can probably appreciate, understand, and learn from the leader we have with us today. On behalf of the ICFAI group, I welcome all of you, and more importantly, our guest today. Our Vice Chancellor, Professor Mahendra Reddy, is also present. I welcome Professor Mahendra Reddy and all other guests. We have Professor R. Prasad, who is going to be a moderator, and he's also available readily with us, and we will start the session with your permission. I would like to introduce the guest first before we move forward with the talk. First 30 minutes will be a talk delivered by Mr. Ajoy, and the next 30 minutes, question and answers moderated by Professor Prasad and I. Here is Mr. Ajoy, and by education, Mr. Ajoy studied a Bachelor of Engineering in Mechanical, and then his postgrad in IIM Calcutta and Harvard, Tata Administrative Services since 1990. Mr. Ajoy is currently the Chief Executive Officer of Titan's Jewellery business that has brands like Tanishq, Mia, Zoya, and Carrot Lane. The jewellery business has a huge network of 450 plus exclusive retail outlets spread across 200 and more towns, and an extensive manufacturing and geographically dispersed sourcing network within India. He's on the board of Carrot Lane Trading Private Limited, a subsidiary of Titan Company Limited. Prior to this, he was responsible for strategy and new business incubation at Titan for 5 years and was tasked with nurturing and launching Titan's new businesses, namely within fragrances, it is brand Skin, and in Indian ethnic women's wear, it is the retail brand Tanera. Mr. Ajoy also has led watch business within Titan, was responsible for driving P&L of domestic and international businesses, Titan Business Unit. His role included expansion into Asia while profitably growing the business, managing a portfolio of brands like Titan, Raga, Xylus, Zoop, etc. at a retail brand, World of Titan, India's largest chain of specialty watch stores. Mr. Ajoy has lived the life of an entrepreneur. Besides launching fragrances and saris, he has a successful record of incubating new businesses for Titan, which includes Helios, a multi-brand premium retail chain, Fast Track sunglasses, accessories, and international licensed brands too. As a leader, Mr. Ajoy has led large and diverse teams across geographies, acting as a mentor for many people in his team and for many managers within the Tata Group. We are so blessed and very delighted to have Mr. Ajoy with us today, who is going to talk about transforming the India's jewelry value chain and the Tanishq way. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me request your help in joining me to welcome Mr. Ajoy so that he can start his talk right away. Mr. Ajoy, over to you, and thank you.
Namaste, and thank you to all for inviting me and having me over here. It's my pleasure to be here, and I'm going to quickly share a presentation which will be interspersed with more interesting things than what I have to say, because I believe pictures and films say more than what any of us can say more expressively. And we will, of course, have a good session afterwards, a discussion. So, when I was asked whether you want to talk about transforming India's jewelry value chain, I picked up the topic instantly saying, yes, this is what exactly Tanishq has been doing. So let me dive into the subject matter straight away. A very quick overview for many of you. Jewelry industry is a large, unorganized market, very, very highly fragmented industry. There are many small manufacturing units and craft units across the country, and it has got 300,000 retailers and 4 million plus karigars and employees. And very interestingly, it's about a 350,000 crore market, but it could be more, it could be less, but you can get the magnitude. Despite 9 out of 10 diamonds being cut and polished in India and such a large ecosystem, the penetration of diamonds is very low. Even today, it's less than 15%. When we got in, it was probably even lower. Jewelry is bought as an investment in the country, but has very low purity standards. And it's been a 25-year long journey in which we've been trying to kind of, build that whole approach towards purity. Gold is linked to tradition and festivals, and Indians love gold. It's connected to our weddings, but there are many opaque customer practices. It is a craft-led value chain, but has exploitation of karigars all the time. So Tanishq's journey has been that of trying to break the category code. On the left is what I talked about, opaque practices, and we have tried to look at it. On the right side are all the strategies we followed. Can we build transparency and trust in a very opaque industry? Can we nudge adornment in an industry where jewelry is really seen as an investment? How do we celebrate a progressive mindset, even though the entire category is tradition-led? Can we bring in the young? Creating a diamond market where the diamond penetration is so low, but we have such beautiful diamond work happening in the country. And of course, the diamond side of the business is far more profitable relative to the gold side. That's another profit linked objective. But nevertheless, since we are about adornment, can we also link it to diamonds? So how can we create that diamond market, especially amongst a wide variety of people? In an industry where there's exploitation of karigars, how do we create a responsible manufacturing and sourcing ecosystem? How do we create a unique customer connect? And in the recent past, with the pandemic, how have we reimagined the digital future? We'll touch upon some of these topics as we go along. For some reason, it is not moving ahead. Let me see. Yeah. So one of the first things that many of you might be aware of, that way back in the mid 90s, when Tanishq was actually struggling to kind of wean away customers from the traditional family jeweler. And when we went about checking caratage, and even today, if I go and check caratage, we get a lot of exchange gold. We get gold caratage purity from as low as 16 carat all the way up to 21 carat for what is supposed to be a 22 carat. So that's been one big area. The second thing that we see, that compliance in our industry is very limited. There are many government laws. There is a PMLA law which says that you cannot accept cash more than 2 lakhs. You have to take the PAN card. You have to ensure that all taxes and everything is done on bill. You have to ensure that when you're taking back gold, are we taking back with full honesty? When we sell gold, are we selling it on gross weight or net weight? Gross weight includes the cost of stones, it includes the cost of dowry, it includes weight of dowry, and it includes the weight of enamel and all the other elements which are non-precious, which may be going there. So when a customer is buying, is she buying 20 grams or is she actually buying 18 grams of? So I would like to actually walk you through one of an early campaigns which we had done a few years ago about Tanishq promises, where the promises were many on this gross weight, net weight. It was about caratage, it was about purity, it was about making charges. Let me take you to a particular campaign which
अभी ना थोड़ी देर पहले एक बड़ा ही स्वीट सा ओल्ड कपल आया। थके हारे लग रहे थे तो मैंने पानी पूछा। अंकल भरे बैठे थे। बोले, देख, ये पानी पिला पिला के ना बहुत लोगों ने मेरा टाइम बर्बाद किया है। तुम पहले मेरे गोल्ड नेकलेस की एक्सचेंज वैल्यू बताओ। तो मैंने उनकी गोल्ड की प्योरिटी को कैरेट मीटर में टेस्ट किया, एक्सचेंज वैल्यू बता दी। अंकल हैप्पी। बोले, बेटे पानी हटा, तू नींबू पानी पिला दे। जब तक अंकल और आंटी नींबू पानी पी रहे थे, मैंने उन्हीं के सामने उनके गोल्ड को मेल्ट कर दिया। अपने गोल्ड के एक्सचेंज में डायमंड नेकलेस ले जाते हुए आंटी इतनी ज़्यादा खुश थी कि जाते जाते मुझे ये देके गई हैं।
तो आप भी आइए तनिष्क, क्योंकि हम जानते हैं कि ये बातें आपके लिए कितने मायने रखती हैं।
So I just wanted to share that the industry practice for taking back gold is so opaque. So I just wanted to share that the way jewelry gets exchanged in the country, the practices are very vague, very open. The gold rates may vary. People may, and a lot of people, when they actually get what they get value for, is very, very low. This is one example of the many different ways in which we've gone about building trust within the entire ecosystem of customers. In fact, I would say compliance to the laws of the land, purity, they may sound very basic, but in an industry which is so unorganized and so fragmented, it has acted actually as a huge competitive advantage. And many of the newer players are actually emulating us on this front. Hallmarking has recently been introduced in the country, but we've been pursuing this path since the last 25 years. The second big strategy was to kind of drive towards adornment. The entire industry, as I said, is about, or the market is about investment. Even today, when people buy even diamond jewelry, people think about it as if it's an investment. And certainly you can't take away that investment mindset away. But actually, for the woman, it is all about wearing something that she wants to adorn and feel the emotion for. So how do we manage both? For us, design has been a huge, huge pillar. It is a strength that we play to. And we have, in fact, introduced this whole collection-based strategy in the industry, which now has started becoming popular with many other retailers. Every year, we launch about 5 to 6, different. Okay, again, it's not moving. Let me just try. Every year, we actually introduce 5-6 different major collections and about 10 to 15 minor collections. And the ones which are major are the ones which we actually try to market in a big way. And these include from Tanishq, these include from Zoya, these include from Mia. So this was one of the collections that we launched last year. But in a way, this is around the entire adornment play. This is on the high value space. This is something that we launched. And if you see each of these collections, I've got a theme. This collection is about being inspired by the rainforest. And this was launched under our luxury brand called Zoya. It plays on precious color stones. And every year we are launching in totality of about at least 15 to 20 new collections with a huge design studio, which is working very closely with the karigars, with our own manufacturing and our NPD team. This is brand Mia, which targets the youth. And here it's all about lightweight. It's about 14 karat. It's about innovating around different manufacturing techniques, which kind of take away the weight of gold and really enhance the everyday workwear aspect of for the woman. The third big piece that I want to talk about is in a very traditional led category. How do we bring in a progressive modern point of view? Because we are targeting the woman of tomorrow, the woman who is already moving ahead, but society may be moving somewhere else or has remained somewhere else. And our approach has been to really look at where the future consumer is. I will show you at least 2 of these campaigns, which in a way bring this alive in a very strong manner.
Young Entrepreneur Award. पहली बार थैंक यू स्पीच दे रही हूँ. सॉरी स्पीच होता तो बहुत प्रैक्टिस है. स्टार्टअप है ना, तो सॉरी कहने की आदत पड़ चुकी है. सॉरी, आई डोंट हैव अ विजिटिंग कार्ड. सॉरी, यू विल हैव टू एडजस्ट. अभी ऑफिस में इतनी ही चेयर्स है. सॉरी सर, आई बेग टू डिफर. सॉरी सर, पर कॉस्ट कम नहीं कर सकते. सॉरी नेहा, आई मिस्ड योर वेडिंग. सॉरी मॉम. सॉरी बेटा, डैड, शांताबाई, सॉरी. इतने सॉरीज बोलने के बाद फाइनली आज मौका मिल रहा है टू से समथिंग आई हैव ऑलवेज वांटेड टू से. थैंक यू. थैंक यू एवरीवन फॉर पुटिंग अप विथ मी.
for those who are willing to try something new. Nilofer by Tanishq.
5 मिनट हो गए वैसे, तुम्हें कुछ बात करनी थी?
Mohit, wait here. This is important.
Important. मैं बता दूं क्या चल रहा है तुम्हारे मन में?
अच्छा,
हाँ,
बताओ.
ब्रेकअप.
Very funny.
रिलैक्स यार, रिलैक्स. यार ये एंगेजमेंट ये सब कुछ बहुत फास्ट हो रहा है यार. हमें थोड़ा और सोचना चाहिए. यही कहना था ना?
कैसे पता?
नहीं, वो जब तुम किसी चीज के बारे में ज्यादा सोचती हो तो तबला बहुत अच्छा बजाती हो.
मोरी उंगलियों के हलचल से मन की उलझन तू जाने रे. जिया मोरा क्या चाहे
अब और नहीं सोचना.
बिन बोले बतलाए
सोचना है इसके बारे में.
जिया मोरा क्या चाहे बिन बोले बतलाए.
जिंदगी के सबसे कीमती लम्हे के लिए तनिष्क एंगेजमेंट रिंग्स.
So I think here I wanted to share that our objective is always talk to the protagonist from the woman's point of view. She is moving ahead much faster than society. Yes, she is part of a context, she's part of a we, but it is always from her point of view. What is the me trying to express in the context of we? We are not a activist brand, we are not a isolating brand, neither are we a traditional brand, but we are a brand for the woman who is taking along the rest of her community, her society, her family towards her perspective in a very harmonious way. And that I think has really, stood out for us. The other important piece that we have been trying to do all the time is about bringing in a younger customer. So how do we ensure that the younger customer finds her way into Tanishq, because that is what is going to be it for engagements, be it in the past over many different collections that we've launched, or be it by launching a sub-brand of Tanishq called Mia, in which we are talking to the workwear needs of a self-expressive modern woman, to somebody who is seeking adornment, and preciousness is not at all important. I mean, it is important to the extent that she wants fine jewelry, but it is not critical. The value of gold and diamonds is nice to know, but really speaking, it is about herself. So bringing in this younger woman is as important for us as a brand, because that is the customer of the future. The fifth element that I want to talk about is how do we build diamond desire in a gold-loving nation? As I said, even today, diamond penetration may be only 15%. Whereas, Tanishq, for example, sells diamond-studded jewelry to close to 33% of its business coming from that. And that has really brought in many, many customers. On the one hand, we have to create desire and build the aura, both for the brand and for diamonds. And on the other hand, we've been at it building accessibility. We have something called lightweight diamonds. We have diamond treats. In fact, our diamond activation that we run twice a year brings in many new customers. During that period, we get as many as 50% of our customers who buy from us completely new to Tanishq, and many a times new to the diamond category itself. In our current stores also, what we've now done is kept gold and diamonds together so that our store staff could seamlessly move the customer from a plain gold ring to a diamond studded ring. And price is really not that difficult or different. So actually, it's a delight, because the mindset for customers is diamonds must be expensive. The sixth element I want to talk about is we are competing with a market which has got family jewelers who got 40 years, 50 years of deep customer relationships. Tanishq, the brand, became Tanishq the jeweler only when we recognize this. There's a softer side to it. Virtually every RSO, every store staff in our ecosystem, and we have 8,000 of them, has about 50 to 100 active customers whom she's in touch with on a personal basis through WhatsApp, through telephone calls, home visits. On the other hand, we have something which is measuring the net promoter score and tracking, and we are tracking net promoter score at every price band. We are tracking net promoter score for different categories of customers, and in recent past also tracking net promoter scores for how are we doing on the safety front and how confident are customers feeling. So there is a yin and yang to this, and it's very difficult to explain it, but the first level that we have done is that there is a Bengali customer, there is a Tamil customer, there is a Telugu customer, there is a Delhi customer, there is a Punjabi customer, there's a Maharashtrian customer, not just for weddings, but even from the festivals we celebrate, even from the jewelry she wears. If Pujo is a big festival here in the south, it's Varamahalakshmi, it is Akshaya Tritiya. Some festivals we've been able to take national, but many of them are very local, celebrating Tej, celebrating Jagannath Yatra, celebrating Raksha Bandhan. You name the festival and we create a whole product range around it. We create a whole campaign around it. We have local ambassadors. For example, Nayantara is our local ambassador in the south, whereas Mimi Chakravarti is somebody in the east. So, and in Maharashtra, we have Sonali Kulkarni. But the idea is to build a deep connect through product, through an emotional connect, and thereafter, therefore, making them feel that Tanishq is my local jeweler. Celebrating special days, I wanted to give you two examples of the kind of stuff that happened. They are illustrative, not exhaustive. On the left, you see Riva is a sub-brand for wedding, and we had a Brides of Patna campaign in which we actually got brides to be as well as brides who have been brides, older women who wanted to dress up as brides. And this was a major activity run over about a couple of months. Eventually, we chose the face of the brand from customers who actually walked the ramp and wore their beautiful wedding dresses, both the young as well as the older ones. On the right, you see, this is an annual event which happens in Indore. Karwa Chauth is a big occasion that's celebrated. And it is a massive festival. In fact, women look forward to this activity. Like this, we have activities running right through the year across our entire 360 Tanishq stores and 500 stores, including Carrot Lane and Mia. So in fact, we invite our Tanishq customers to our factory. Now, in the last 1.5 years, that's taken a back seat, but we invite them to our factory and they actually see. We have every month, literally, there are groups of customers who visit and see how jewelry is made, and they understand the care that goes in, creating the jewelry. I'm not going to play this film because it takes a long time to do this activity, and I know we are running tight on time. But one of the other hallmarks that we have tried to play upon is the authenticity of how we make our jewelry, and therefore we celebrate the karigars and their karigari through our multiple campaigns. In fact, some of these campaigns have got the widest amount of viral views, and people have shared, and it has touched their hearts. So while Tanishq is about celebrating relationships, but it is about being authentic and celebrating the real karigari that goes behind making of the jewelry. In the new normal, I've talked a lot about this, and maybe some of you have caught it. Tanishq has led the way. In fact, jewelry division has led the way for the entire company, and in the industry, people have looked up to say, oh, how did Tanishq move omni? How did you guys manage to do remote shopping? When I say remote shopping, it's about video call based shopping. It's about endless aisle. It's about combining, journeys in a new age way. For example, in a Bangalore store, Roshni and her mother-in-law walk in to see traditional Oriya jewelry. But we know that the best collection is available in, let's say, Bhubaneswar. So the RSO Lakshmi shows her the collection from endless aisle, brings in an expert from the Bhubaneswar store on the same call, connects it, brings the products over here based on whatever she selected, and helps to fulfill. And this collaborative selling has really picked up in a big way. We are currently selling close to, between video calls and collaborative selling through endless aisle, we are doing at least 200 to 250 crores a month. And this is a huge activity. In fact, this entire omni approach, whether it is central selling and then passing leads to customers and therefore joint closure happening, or this approach of remote selling, is now begun to contribute almost 14% of the Tanishq total business that we do every month, every quarter. This has become a new growth engine for us. Personalization at scale is another important thing. Many people don't know, but we actually, the fact that we can create designs especially for the customer, or we can modify our designs or create some heritage jewelry which they have from their own. This is something which we do at scale. Yeah, the last leg of what I want to speak after another few minutes, if you can grant me, is about the way we manufacture our jewelry. I just want to give you a flavor. I think pictures speak louder than words. So this is the way actually traditional jewelry gets made. And what I have captured here are pictures which are not as depressing and inhumane as you might imagine. There are sometimes 20 people working in a less than 100 square foot space across over 2 levels, a mezzanine floor and a ground floor, bent like this. And most of the time the Karigar life doesn't go beyond 40 because he has to go back home. Simply too much pollution, simply inhumane working conditions. What we have done is, this was our journey. We started with something called Unnati and then to Mr. Perfect, and we have got Karigar parks and Karigar centers. There are many aspects to this, but the larger idea is, how do we ensure there's dignity in that work? There is latest ergonomic designs, there's microscope setting, there is no pollution. And every one of our 80 vendors, besides our own factories, is at least a Mr. Perfect or a Karigar park and a Karigar center. In fact, we hold many, we have about 14,000 Karigars in our ecosystem. And even recently, when we had to do vaccination or we had to educate them about COVID, we ensured that every one of those 14,000 Karigars, whether they are ours or they are part of the vendor system, are actually inoculated. We have established a 4P framework for responsible sourcing. Pretty much we have classified vendors from base cottage to basic to standard to world class. And by the end of this financial year, over the last 3 years, we have committed to moving all of them into standard or world class. Our own factories are, of course, world class. And about 40% of the studded business we are producing in-house, whereas 60% comes from outsourced. What is a craft? And this is our factory. This is the way our factory looks. Most jewelers who come to our factory, most jewelry experts in the world who come to our factory are taken aback by what we have done to this craft. This was the conventional way in which dispatches take place and match sets take place. Today, there's an automated full kit preparation. And we have many such examples which is happening in our factories. I want to finally leave you behind with a thought that it is not about worrying about competition. It is not about fulfilling existing customer needs, but many a times it's also about leading the customer, just a few steps ahead. I want to share with you this one last video, after which we can conclude this conversation. This is a campaign which is just going on air, and I'm sure you
दिखता है खिड़की से खुशियों का गुब्बारा, दिखता है खिड़की से खुशियों का गुब्बारा, रोशन कर ले दिल को, जी ले दोबारा, दिल में है उत्साह, धड़कन में उत्साह, हर तरफ है उत्साह।
आज श्रृंगार को रंगों से सजाना है, आज रोशनी की तरफ एक कदम और बढ़ाना है।
हैप्पी दिवाली। इस बार भी मिठाई बाहर रख के चले जाओगे?
आज बीते कल को पीछे छोड़ जाना है, रस्मों को फिर से दिल से निभाना है।
हमारा ताके है रास्ता घर तुम्हारा,
जिन आंखों को इंतजार था हमारा, आज उनमें दिए जलाना है।
हैप्पी दिवाली भैया।
कल को जिस चेहरे ने रोशन रखा उसे आज खुशियों का हार पहनाना है।
तेरी शरारतों में है खुशबू मेरी, रिझाए दिल मेरा अटकेलियां तेरी। दिल में है उत्साह, धड़कन में उत्साह, हर तरफ है उत्साह।
हैप्पी दिवाली।
सेम टू यू।
आज जिंदगी को त्योहार जैसे मनाना है। आज हर कल से ज्यादा मुस्कुराना है, खुल के खिलखिलाना है। आज दिवाली का बहाना है। उत्साह बाय तनिष्क।
So yeah, with this actually, I've come to the end. There are a few takeaways which I want each one of us to think about a little bit. One is, think industry ecosystem, not only your specific market or specific industry or specific, think the entire ecosystem end to end. The second piece I would like to state is focus on customers. We have always believed that competition is not as important as thinking about what your customers want, or more importantly, what are the future customer want and what are the future customer needs? What are those unstated needs of the customer which we can fulfill? Third, trust takes time. It is built one customer, one touch point at a time. For a large ecosystem like ours, there are so many touch points across the 500 plus stores that we have every day, every moment. Therefore, it's really about every customer it's an n equal to 1 approach. And trust takes time to build, but it can break very easily. Fourth, I think as a brand, any brand needs to have an authentic point of view, consistent with what you are as an organization, consistent with what you believe in. We can only be who we are and therefore present that best point of view to the customer. Fifth, the future emerges from our imagination. It is only our imagination which limits our dreams. And the bigger we dream, the more futuristic we dream, the more reality we can create from it. Maybe one step at a time, but it really is in our imagination. This whole digital way of selling, or this whole wanting to adorn the woman with diamonds, is come out of our own imagination and our own desire. Finally, I think leading requires you to break some category codes, and it requires courage. Sometimes you have to go against the rest of the industry, and sometimes, and many a times, it requires deep commitment and perseverance. So thank you. You guys have been a patient audience, and apologies for the many tech-related challenges which I faced in being able to toggle between presentations. I'm sorry I've taken 5 minutes more than anticipated, but I'm happy to spend the next half an hour if you guys are okay.
Great. Mr. Ajay Chawla, I think this has been a fantastic talk. The journey looks like from adornment to adornment. I read somewhere that about 5,000 years back, during Indus Valley civilization, this adornment has picked up, maybe because of the availability of precious stones. And then what has become part of our culture was reflected in various monuments and palaces that were built, or large ornamental doors that were constructed in palaces. We saw adornment. So the cultural reflection began there, and what largely remained as an opaque system and in human value chain has been largely now corrected and made human, added dignity to the karigaris, apart from various other things. So between adornment to adornment now, adornment by chance to adornment by desire, which Tanishq is doing so beautifully and dutifully, I think we must salute you all for enriching this value chain. Of course, in between, there are lots of precious stones, more metals like gold, silver, platinum, diamonds, and of course, the brand connect and emotional connect that you have built is something fantastic, and for all of us to celebrate, while you are celebrating the very act of creating occasions, festivities, and happy moments all across the country. Thank you very much for doing this piece, Mr. Ajay Chawla. We are very happy to have gone through this educative and entertaining talk delivered by you just now. Thank you very much once again. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll now move to the next part of our talk. And this is conversation, and conversation is based on questions and answers. These questions and answers are basically starting with the questions which you have keyed in at the time of registration. Now, these conversations will begin, but during the course of the conversation, just in case you have additional questions, you can key in the chat box and we'll pick it up depending on the alignment in case that question has not been covered. So we will take care of that part. But you will continue to mute your mics and enjoy the conversation and the takeaways. And please use the chat box that is available for you. So ladies and gentlemen, let me now bring in Professor R. Prasad, who is my esteemed colleague. He is a Director of Academic Wing at ICFAI Group. He is going to start the moderation, and a brief introduction of Professor R. Prasad is that he has been an entrepreneur and he worked in corporate and academia. He brings to the table a rich experience of 30 years. He's a grad from IIT Mumbai, IIT Bombay, and IIM Calcutta. And he is the architect of the latest program that we have launched. It is called Online MBA Program. He acts as professor and mentor for Online MBA Program in its execution and its conduct, and also mentoring all the students who are part of the entire program. So ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome Professor R. Prasad to initiate the moderation. And once again, I'm reminding you and requesting you, just surveying the screen if anybody is unmuted. So kindly mute it and let's enjoy this session. Professor Prasad.
Thank you, Professor Sudhakar Rao. That was a wonderful session, Mr. Ajoy. I think it is inspiring. It also reflects your journey as an entrepreneur. And I think transforming a value chain is a very, very, it's a big mission. And I think a lot of energy, a lot of foresight, a lot of leading which goes into it. So I'm taking out a couple of points from what you've mentioned. You've been fairly detailed in how you've covered it. The first is the matter of adornment. And here I'd like to connect to what we do in education. Adornment is a manner of self-expression. And if we are able to understand that, we can do that in our respective fields. And that's what we also try to do when we look at education. Education also needs to be a manner of self-expression. The other is the transformational nature of the work that you do, and then how we also connect to it. So to begin with, I will, assuming that all the points that you made are understood well, I'll take it to a global question. And this question has come from the audience. A lot of the audience wants to see how well you do on a global field when you have a lot of leaders, US, China, India, looking at the jewelry market globally. What kind of trends have come in, and particularly after the pandemic? And how can Indian jewelry position itself in the international market, in the gift segment, on various occasions, just like Indians do? This is the first question.
Sure. So I think the jewelry category is such that it is very geographic, unlike many other, let's say unlike watches in which I've worked, or fragrances, there is a certain globalness to the entire category, whereas jewelry, let's say Turkish jewelry or Thai jewelry, or let's say Western, European jewelry, Chinese or Indian, they are specific to that region, both the design, language, as well as the material preference, as well as even, whether it is studded or gold or color stones. So I think global trends in jewelry are not very, very easy to read. But what we do, I'll take the question at another level. I think there are global design trends and there are meta themes that exist. For example, minimalism is a meta theme, or gender blurring of genders in terms of the way they express themselves. That is a meta theme which has been operational. Or self-expression through color. And colors, of course, vary, for different fashion categories. Every year, there's the colors of the year, etc. So what our design teams certainly do is pick some of these meta themes and try to translate them into what would be relevant for the Indian market, because on its own, it may not vary. The second way in which I can respond to this question is that, the one thing which has become global is these kind of virtual meets, what we would call above the chest or above the waist expression. So I don't know what you guys might be, but it's really our faces and all the way up to perhaps our waist at best that is visible, and that in turn has influenced many trends. So in fact, our entire collection this season has been something which would work, where we said we must come out with jewelry which is wearable as opposed to sitting in the locker. So wearability over lockerability, above the waist wear, lightweight, because I think it's all about expressing and celebrating every day. In fact, the last campaign that we played was about celebrating today, celebrating the festival of life, which is today, not just keeping it in the future, because that's what people have experienced during the pandemic. So that's the second level. The third one, which is something specific to do with gold prices. As gold prices kind of have gone up, people's preference for diamond jewelry has picked up, people's preference for platinum has picked up, and within gold there is a lot of interest in rose gold and other kind of expressive gold. So I think some of those trends have also come in. So these are top level responses. Now, how well can India, in fact, India has a very large, India is the jewelry exporter. If you think of that sector, we have many Indian manufacturers who export in a big way to Europe and America. And actually, we have deep India capability. There's a whole India stack waiting to be exploited for international. So through Carrot Lane, we've started some activity. Even Tanishq has started stepping overseas now. We have opened a store in Middle East. We are opening stores in the US. I think the opportunity is huge. Many of our designers are also planning, not Tanishq, but many other famous Indian designers are also exploring international markets. So the opportunity for a category like this is huge. And the fourth trend, which is emerging, it is too early, it is more in the West, there's a whole bit about lab-grown diamonds. And in the US, it's become big. We don't know whether it will work in India because of the inherent investment nature approach that Indians have towards jewelry. But maybe the sustainability plank might come in, etc. So that's another, broader trend that I can speak.
Thank you. I think that's very, very interesting. Gives a lot of hope to those who follow this sector, as well as those who are students, that there are, despite this being highly geographic, there are global trends, and that you are making attempts to align that and see how that value can be passed on to Indian customers and thereafter also on to global customers. And also the fact that, the COVID trend of above the waist is also a very important thing that you've mentioned. And I think the most important point was with respect to the potential which awaits India if things are done well. We now move on to the next question, which is associated and also at a very broad level. What kind of regulatory reform do you think will help the industry? So there have been questions related to integrated institutional gold ecosystem, new initiative by SEBI for commodity ETFs, GST policy, hallmark guidelines, export support. But from the field, what do you think can be the regulatory reform which will help us to exploit the potential that we've been discussing?
Yeah, I think the more we formalize this sector, the better it is. You see, finally, a lot of gold gets smuggled into the country. I think that's the biggest issue which sits there. And in a way, many times people think it's a drain on importing gold is a drain, but actually no. If all that gold were to be imported legally, there would be so much more gain to the government because of customs duty that is there. But for that, customs duties may have to come down. More importantly, this whole bit about how gold circulates in the entire economy, is something which is a very baffling problem. It's a wicked problem. It won't get solved overnight. But I think the first step towards building an international bullion exchange in Gift City and building a local India exchange, and then building a very close coordination, or let's say ability to transact between the two, building that connect between international and domestic. The once that happens, along with the hallmarking piece and the HUID piece, which recently saw a lot of resistance from the trade, it would mean that you can actually trace your end piece of jewelry right up to where it came from, how it came in, where it went. Now that is a very large game plan, and in a large fragmented industry like ours, it's going to take time. But fundamentally, if you think of it, regulating gold, and because if you don't, it actually can be used for very unlawful activities and right up to terrorism and financing drugs, etc. So gold is a very tricky subject. The second area which I feel which is very important is, how are we ensuring that the gold and diamonds that are getting used in the category are coming from conflict-free zones? They are not blood diamonds, etc. Now, we know there's a responsible jewelry council. There are many international agencies. But having said that, I think that is a global problem. I'm not sure if there is a cast iron answer to that. And no matter what certifications you have, until there is complete traceability end to end. Now, this is a global problem, not an India problem alone. Okay, but in India, it has not yet become sensitive. As and when it becomes sensitive, maybe regulation might come in there. I think a lot of regulation has come in the recent past, and that is pushing the sector towards formalization, towards cleaning up the act. I think if only gold we can control and manage well, that will be the game changer. I think there is a lot of work going on the gem and jewelry side for export promotion. I don't think we need more regulation there. It is just, freeing up that sector a little bit, supporting them with whatever incentives, etc. are needed so that people can freely export and have access to finance, etc. Those are other things which can happen. I think hedging is another piece which RBI could, allow internationally, because for organized players like us, we need to hedge every gram of gold that we hold in our system. Right now, the domestic hedging is a very limited liquidity. So these are some of the regulatory pieces which can help.
Thank you. That was wonderful. I think you've touched upon a lot of angles there at a very broad level. And all of them are extremely important for us to understand where these things will go as time unfolds. The next query is about gold again. How do you see the price of gold evolving? And currently, what kind of key forces do you think are influencing this?
So like any other commodity, it has its volatility and fluctuations. It is based on international demand supply. Most people think that towards Diwali, gold prices will go up and so on and so forth. But actually, the gold prices are dictated by the international dollars per troy ounce rate that operates. And very small part of it goes into jewelry manufacture. A large part of it is bought by central banks, a large part of it by commodity dealers and bullion traders. So like any other commodity, it has its technical charts, and that's how things go. Of course, during economic crisis, there is a safe haven towards gold. That always comes into play. The third force which plays out quite interestingly is usually the dollar and the gold go in opposite directions. When the dollar is going strong, gold tends to soften and vice versa. Now, there may be some odd times when it has not behaved that way. But to predict how gold will go, it requires crystal ball gazing, or it needs some experts from the commodity market. At best, they're able to see resistance levels and, on the upside or on the bottom side. They're always able to give a band. Many people ask us, we never hedge on gold. The common view in the Indian jewelry sector is gold will always go up. And sure, maybe over a 50-60 year period, if you see, there's a 4% CAGR on gold. But having said that, in between, there can be a lot of volatility. And for a player like us, which is mark to market, follows certain declare results in a particular way, we can't afford to have volatility. So we hedge 100% of our gold. There is absolutely no position we take on gold. But many jewelers take a view that, sorry, they won't hedge, and therefore they gain from the stock position that they hold. So that's about I can share about how gold prices will behave. I have no clue. You guys can take your own chances at that. Pretty much like how stock prices may behave, I can't say for sure.
Interesting insight coming from the industry. I think the next question is something that you have given us a very, very broad background when you have done the presentation. But this question is articulated a little differently. Combining luxury and utility is a craft. And you are into a craft. So apart from the sustainability and the profits, what is it? What are the factors that you'd like to recollect and emphasize on?
See, luxury. Okay, let me give you a slightly different take on luxury. Okay, since we've talked about it, maybe it's a little off the question. Many people have defined, and I'm going to give you a point of view which is from us, from Titan, and perhaps even from the Tata Group, because we are that type of a organization. Luxury, many international brands would have us to believe, is about exclusivity and keeping people out. Okay, whereas the moment something becomes very widely accessible, it is not seen as exclusive enough, and therefore, now if you think about the Taj group of hotels and the kind of warmth and hospitality you see there, or Vistara, if I were to say, the kind of warmth and hospitality, or in Tanishq, or even Zoya, if I were to say, we believe in offering a new age definition of luxury. It is not about excluding people, but it is about inviting them to express themselves very, very uniquely. Sure, the price point may be sitting somewhere else, but everybody is welcome to build that aspiration and desire for the future. So there's one point of view on luxury I wanted to share. Now, luxury and utility. I think jewelry is, if you ask me, a lot of people think jewelry is about discretionary and luxury, or it is about tradition. But to me, jewelry is about, on the one level, it is seen as an asset value. Okay, it is pretty much a necessity, because in the Indian scheme of things, when it comes to festivals, when it comes to weddings, when it comes to important occasions, maybe even a god barai or a child is born, jewelry is seen as something precious. It's as precious as the emotion. It is going to last a lifetime. So jewelry therefore acquires a very deep meaning in the mind of the Indian consumer. So many analysts who read it as a discretionary spending jewelry, I don't think they get it. Therefore, when the unlock happened last year and this year, people rush to buy jewelry, not just for their birthdays and anniversaries, but for the festivals they missed, for the important occasions. While people were not spending money on travel and destination weddings and other such events, they felt it's very important that I gift jewelry to my daughter or daughter-in-law, because that is going to be forever with her. It is a symbol of my love. So I don't know, how do you categorize this? Is it utility? Is it luxury? Is it necessity? I don't know. It is emotion, and it is deeply connected with our culture.
Thank you. I think that's a wonderful response. And you've given a completely different perspective compared to what you've put in earlier. And I think they're very, very realistic. One is about aspiration. And I think everyone in today's world is looking at that, whoever it may be. And therefore, it goes with the definition of luxury that you're doing. And I think that's a big thing. That's a big thing. And the other big thing that you mentioned is about emotion. And emotion is something that is extremely important in today's world. And I think the energy that people get comes from emotion, not from knowledge. So I think that's also a very, very important takeaway from your response to the question. Thank you very much. We have ended one cluster. I'd hand it to Professor Sudhakar Rao for the next one.
Thank you, Prof. Mr. Ajoy, I think this is getting more and more interesting in terms of the overviews, in terms of insights that you're sharing. There's a lot of takeaways for us. So I will now focus on branding and global dimensions, and I have about 3 to 4 questions in this cluster. Although it has been touched upon in a manner of speaking through the TV commercials and some of the bullet points on your PPT, we would like to understand how Titan and Tanishq has gone about in understanding the Indian customer. Of course, it's been evolving, but if you can give us top 3-4 points on how you have gone about in understanding the consumer and what is the strategy to strengthen the brand, I think that would help us. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so I think every organization has their approach. We certainly believe whichever category we've gone into, I can now talk about beyond jewelry, watches or eyewear or fragrances or saris. I think the best way to understand the customer is to meet the customer. There is no other rocket science to it, and I think whether you meet them one-on-one, you meet them in groups, I think market research is useful from a quantitative perspective. From a qualitative perspective is even more important. Insights come out of those qualitative interactions, observations. I think I have personally gained the most when I have stood in a store, or I've gone on trunk shows when we were launching saris and we were trying to sense out how the market is across the country. Actually spending those 3 days, 5 days with customers, observing them like, 40-year-olds and 50-year-olds going gaga like children in a candy store, told me a story. Similarly, when I look at jewelry, I think how the customer actually thinks. See, we have a classic thing. Is it an investment type customer? Is adornment? Sorry, there is no such customer who's sitting here or there. Some of them may be more inclined towards investment, but they also have an adornment factor. Many people say the South Indian customer is very, very value driven, but she's coming in every quarter, every month to check out the next new pair of earrings. Now that is about style and expression. If I look at, you think the North Indian customer or the Marwari customer, people say the Marwari customer is looking at the per carat rate of diamonds. They love diamonds, big, big diamonds. I think Sindhis, I'm a Sindhi myself, and Marwadis love these big diamonds. But for those big diamonds and those 30 lakh sets and 1 crore sets, they are looking for value. Now, typically you would have classified that as something else. So that's the other piece which comes out. On a more formal basis, besides the brand tracks and the customer surveys, and when we are launching new products, we go reach out to customers. We also do a consumer sentiment understanding every few months. In fact, it's a rolling activity in which we try to understand what is the customer's point of view at this point, what is emerging. And we call it a blue sky study. We work with a partner and we try to track, this is beyond the category. What is she thinking about travel? What are they thinking about discretionary spending? What are they thinking about health? What are the issues, whatever comes up? And from that meta universe of insights, we try and figure out what is the role our category can play. Is our category under threat because everybody wants to travel abroad? Or, this insight about celebrating today in our latest campaign, Aaj ko Tyohar jaise manana hai. That has actually come from customer insight saying people are unsure what the future will be. People have seen a very difficult past. They want to celebrate the here and now. Now, it sounds philosophical, but it actually came to us from a deep consumer insighting. And we said this entire product and campaign has been crafted around celebrating today, celebrating moments of today. So that comes from the sentiment studies we do. In addition to the consumer work that I spoke about, we also try and understand for us, like what is happening in watches, what is happening in the department store channel, in other categories. And we try to see, is there some common insights we can draw from, what is happening in, let's say, West Side. We can reach out to West Side, or what's happening in other categories where you can do a lot of secondary research, which typically trend analysis and innovation teams do. That's another piece that we draw our insights from. And a fourth approach that we have evolved in the last 2 years, it's thanks to pandemic, we've started having partner roundtable conferences. All our ad agencies, market research agencies, digital agencies, media agency, PR agency, they're all people interacting with so many different clients. So 6 months, we do a partner roundtable. And actually, we get a lot of very interesting insights, maybe very diverse points of view, but from that really emerges some great insights. So these are different ways in which we kind of read the customer.
Great. I think these practices are very, very interesting. Apart from the regular textbook kind of methodologies that we have talked about, the more interesting ones are understanding the adjacencies of this customer, what the customer is doing in other segments or other markets, investment into new fashions and other products. Luckily, your group is so large that there is a greater feasibility for you to understand or pick up those common insights when you observe them. But more importantly, stand in front of the customer or stand in the store, observe them and pick up your insights. And that's the takeaway for now. Thank you very much for that answer. Typically, the second question, typically in India, people buy 22 karat gold. Could be because of investment. what is the extent, according to you, is the shift towards 14 karat gold jewelry? (22 to 14).
Okay, so see, 22 to 14 is not as much. So let me put it this way. A lot of people are today open to buying 18 karat jewelry, but it is the more modern consumer. Certainly all this diamond studded or the precious stone studded jewelry is usually in 18 karat. So that people have accepted. In that precious stone studded jewelry, certain markets are now open to taking a 14 karat stone, diamond studded jewelry, because they're really buying the jewelry for the diamond value, not so much for the gold value. And therefore they don't, because it also helps in keeping the price point low. So they are willing to really look at 14 karat diamond studded. Plain 14 karat, let's say plain, when I mean plain is non-studded jewelry or non-precious studded jewelry. From there to 14 does not exist. For those who want plain, mostly they want 22. Very marginal sliver is okay with 18. But it's in the studded side where people are willing to come down to 14. In fact, Mia is a 14 karat offering. Carat Lane has about 40% of its offering is 14. There's a mixed caratage offered between 14 and 18 by many other large players also in the market. And that is beginning to gain traction, largely in the studded space and largely for a slightly younger audience.
Great. So 14 karat gold is finding acceptance and it's growing in the younger segment, especially in the studded jewelry category. Thank you, sir. There's another question that has come from the audience. There's a perception that Tanishq charges or asks for the high making charges. Are you doing something to change this perception, or it is part of your business model?
No, I think when we had launched the Tanishq Promises campaign, we were able to demonstrate to customers that we have products as low as 8% making charges. We have a wide variety. Many a times the industry likes to paint a picture that I've got something starting at 5%, 6%. When you go to the store, you won't find it. So it's a ploy. But I must also say at a broad level, since we have always believed in purity, okay, we have not parked any margin sitting in that purity game, which many jewelers have chosen to park. So they park their margins between purity and making charges and gold rate. Let's say there are three different. Purity is something which you can't fool the customer, and we are very clear about that. When it comes to gold rate, we have chosen to go with a higher markup compared to other jewelers in the marketplace. Not very much high, but maybe 50 rupees a gram or maybe up to 75 rupees a gram, because there is a certain, we are sourcing our gold from LBMA gold, which is conflict-free gold. We are ensuring that we actually manage the entire refining, alloying, so that we control that gold. We know it is not smuggled. It is completely come from clean sources and fully duty paid. And more importantly, when you come back to exchange your gold, we will give it to you at that higher rate at which we sell. So we are charging a little bit of premium there, but we are also ensuring that the customer gets her full value of gold when she comes back. Now it comes to making charges. Our quality standards and our design are more intricate compared to the rest of the market. Like any other category, there has to be a certain premium that is charged for quality and that is charged for finish. So we have no hesitation in saying that, yes, we will have some amount of premium over the rest of the market because of the quality of finish, because of the craftsmanship and intricate, and you can actually check. People can actually check, and we are happy to show even the backside of the jewelry, how it's finished. So yes, there will be a little bit of premium that we will charge, but I think we have products across price points and across making charges, and we are very transparent with the customer. But rest of the industry would like to say that Tanishq is expensive, but I understand that is their approach to market there. That's fine. That's fine.
Great. I think that's a fantastic answer. In terms of upholding purity, in terms of maintaining the best gold rate, as well as the making charges, in order to align with the quality. But overall, what I see is your strategy and practices are more in alignment with your corporate philosophy, and that's coming out consistently. So thank you very much, sir, for that answer. So the next one is about what are some of the best practices or standards a manufacturer must follow in order to be eligible for getting associated with Tanishq?
That's a very so we have this 4P framework that I touched upon. We insist that people have a dedicated, many of the manufacturing happens through outsourced, bench karigar, head karigar, they farm it out. And then how it is being made, under what conditions, there's no control. Consistency is not under control. So we insist that manufacturers actually bring the karigars under one roof, where we can ensure that there's a certain quality of workplace, there is a certain focus on the planet, pollution control is there, and there are good, consistent quality practices and processes. That is the largest piece for us. The rest of it is to do with, being very clean, high integrity, and ensuring that they give us good, consistent declaration of gold, good gross weight, net weight, and they don't goof up on some of these essentials that need to be done. Hi, am I audible, or
yes,
has my internet connection? Okay. So there are many other criteria. It will be difficult to enumerate them here, but these are the two large ones that I wanted to speak about.
Great.
Quality being very critical in whatever we do.
Okay, being very critical in whatever we do. Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you. The next one is, we have a question from one of the participants here, Mr. Malik. He's from the US, and the question is, we would love to understand the international growth objectives of Tanishq, and what are the opportunities for export of branded jewelry like Tanishq, and Tanishq's experience in the international expansion process.
Okay. May I ask you to repeat the question?
Yes,
I think the net connection is a little.
Yes, I will. A participant would like to understand the international growth objectives of Tanishq, and what are the opportunities for export of branded jewelry.
Okay, so we are, yeah, I'll try to answer. I got the sense of the question. I have put off my video to try and optimize the audio part of it. We are already serving customers across the globe through online. Okay, we serve across the entire part of, virtually every nook and corner of the world. CaratLane has already started exploring options of having a very active presence in the US and building a whole business there. It is still work in progress, so early to comment, but certainly a large opportunity sitting there. This is again, it is targeting both a younger mindset, Indian as well as American, but maybe starting with Indian and then going beyond Indian. Tanishq actually is in the process of setting up 2 stores in the US. These are pilot stores for us, and we are exploring New Jersey, and we are really targeting the NRI population to start with. I think there are many other Indian jewelers have already been there, and we are a little late in that space. Middle East is another area that we have opened and embarked. So I think right now our strategy is towards the NRI Indians, and we see there's a large opportunity. Unfortunately, the last 2 years, because of COVID, somehow these actions have got delayed. Otherwise, we had a very aggressive plan, but nothing lost. The opportunity remains, and the demand and desire for Tanishq is very high across the entire NRI community. That is our current strategy. We have not yet thought about targeting the non-NRI community, at least not through Tanishq. CaratLane may attempt to do that, but it is also early days. So but I must also tell you that the India opportunity for us is huge. Despite our size, Tanishq is only 5% of the Indian market. So even from a corporate strategy and a divisional strategy point of view, even if I had all the brands we have, we'll be maybe 5.5% or something like that. So the headroom for growth is massive. And I'm not saying that we can become a 25-30% player, but even if you were to become a 10% player in a market which is growing at a low single digit, nevertheless, it's huge. So we can virtually double our business in the next few years if we were to, just focus strongly. Of course, it's not an easy task. It involves expansion. We have expanded into 220 towns, and there are at least another 70, 80 towns waiting to be explored. So when you have so many opportunities, you have to make some choices. And as a good corporate strategy, we have chosen to first focus on India while there's a separate team exploring international.
Great. I think that has been a very, very good response in terms of the opportunity for India in exporting branded jewelry in various other markets is pretty large. As you said, massive opportunity exists. And of course, Carrot Lane from your own stable is trying to get into this business, and these are early days. Thank you very much for that answer. One last question in this cluster before I hand it over to Professor Prasad is that, are we going to see Indian diamonds replacing American diamonds in the near future?
Well, normally American diamonds are referred to the cubic zirconium, not diamonds. They are not really in the market. That's how they get referred to, American diamond. So I don't know. There is no such thing as an American diamond. Actually, real diamonds are mined in different parts of the world, where there are different mines from Russia, from Australia, from Africa, from South America. They get cut and polished in India. They get traded in Israel and Antwerp, and the jewelry gets manufactured in India, China, Thailand, Turkey, and Americans consume it. So I don't know what is an American diamond. The loose definition of American diamond in the trade is basically, or in the consumer side, is really crystal. Cubic zirconia is also referred to as American diamond. So American diamonds is not, it's the, for, let's say, imitation jewelry, not really precious jewelry. But synthetic diamonds is a whole new world, which is that lab-grown diamonds. That is getting made in China, in Singapore, in very, very small right now, in parts of Canada, I think Europe and India also, in Surat there is, but that's a very new nascent piece. So I don't know if that is what the person intended to ask. That may take a long time. It's a drop in the ocean still. It may actually bring more people into the diamond category, because it might come at an affordable price and therefore get them into that journey.
Great. That has been a precious answer, pun intended. So thank you very much, Mr. Ajay. I will now hand it over to Professor Prasad for the next cluster of questions. Professor.
Thank you, Professor Rao. This question touches upon the digitalization journey at Tanishq, or maybe even digital transformation. What kind of, you did briefly allude to it when you did the presentation, but what is the journey of digitalization at Tanishq, and what kind of technologies do you use amongst the current in order to understand your customer as well as manage your operations?
Actually, the digitalization as a journey has multiple dimensions. Dimension one is being able to influence your customer, very simply, which is digital marketing, search engine optimization, that whole basket of things, which I think many brands are doing, nothing unique that Tanishq is doing. Then there is building digital assets in the form of your website, app, etc., which is again about being able to attract customers and build a large stickiness. We get about 2.5 million unique visitors every month on the Tanishq website. So thereafter, it is about engaging with the customer. So we have actually embarked upon live chats. We have put together a whole central team and a distributed regional team to be able to start talking to the customer live. There is a bot, but very quickly we move on to a personal chat, and that could be a live chat. It could be a video call. It could be it could even be something which just the person wants to be connected to the closest store, and we can do a collaborative call. So there's that whole piece of engaging with that customer who has come there and she's looking for something specific or wants to know more. And therefore, from that emerges this whole stream. Either they will move towards buying online, or they may just be a lead, which is then passed on to the closest customer, who will in turn reach out to them. So that then results in an omni-phygital, let's say, physical and digital journey. Then there is this whole remote buying, which is through virtual try-ons, through endless aisle, through, these are feature-led, These are technologies which are available everywhere, but we have kind of taken it in a big way, and we've tried to make it as simple and frictionless for the customer. Remote shopping came up more in pandemic, and it has become now a convenient way to shop for people. So remote shopping has 2 or 3 dimensions. One is about video call based shopping, which could happen from the store closest to them, or it can happen centrally. The other one that we do is try at home. I think Carrot Lane has been doing that pretty well, and Zoya, our luxury brand, has also been doing that pretty well for repeat. Carrot Lane has even looked at it targeting for new customers. So you can sit in the comfort of your home and the store will come home physically, literally. That is remote shopping. So these are the different dimensions and aspects. Now there are other digitalization pieces, which is more operations behind and back end, which is, digital certification. Let's say on the app, you can get your you have a digital account for your Golden Harvest monthly scheme that we have. And that also, this enrolling on the app, for example, on the Golden Harvest program, completely remotely, has also been something that we have enabled. And in fact, we see a large traction out there, including a remote eKYC, Aadhaar validation, etc. So these are other pieces of digitization that we've looked at. Technologies are pretty much available, but it requires a lot of effort to customize it to your process, and 2, ensure that you have a backend ecosystem which is also comfortable with this approach and actually guides the customer onto these things. So it's not just about having the boxes and the tools, it's also the entire large ecosystem of people in our system becoming comfortable and then bringing the customer also on that comfortable journey. That has happened in a big way during this pandemic. We've seen that has exploded like crazy. That's why it's become a 14-15% contributor growth engine for us.
Thank you. I think that's a very, very structured response, and very, very easily understandable to most of us. And I think this part about the backend ecosystem also being able to adopt and absorb what you're trying to do is an extremely important part in the transformation that one wants to bring in. The next question is related in the sense that, since we have passed through COVID, and you also brought up the fact that a lot of people in the industry were surprised by how you have responded to it. So beyond the digitalization aspect, are there any other points that you'd like to touch upon in terms of how you responded and how that led to impact?
Yeah, I think one of the simplest things that we did when COVID struck last year, we reached out to our customers. Of course, first of all, we reached out to all our entire store teams and staff and ensured their safety. But that was by example, but the big thing that we did was every store staff who was sitting at home, she is sitting lost. So what we did was we said, you just call all your customers, talk to them, ask them if they need any help, how are they doing? Totally non-sales. We call them empathy calls. Our entire ecosystem reached 1.4 million customers in 2 months. And that is something which is invaluable. I think first time customers said that a brand has reached out to us to ask about our well-being, and many of them needed some help. It could be some very simple logistical help, or it could be serious things like medicines or connect to a doctor. Interestingly, when we tried the same thing during wave 2, many customers told us, can you get me a bed? Can you get oxygen? If not, then don't bother. And we realized very quickly that this cannot be a formula. We can't just put on and say we are doing empathy calls, but actually have nothing to offer you if you have a problem. So only where we had opportunities, where we had built rapid response teams, where we could help people with either oxygen concentrators or connect. And we did help a lot of customers. But we told people, stay away. If somebody needs help and you get to know about it and we can reach out and help, we will help. But let us not fool the customer. Let us be authentic to who we are. I think so. This is one piece which really stood out. The second piece was about building a very sharp safety protocol, including even some customers being asked if they would like to test their oxygen levels, etc., when they enter, sanitizing their footwear, antimicrobial coating for jewelry that we have launched, UV sanitization of the phone, and there was a whole very detailed protocol which kept evolving to 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. I think it was captured well anecdotally by customers saying, we feel safer in your stores than at home. So they get their children along, even when we unlock. Kids running around, and therefore, now of course it's double masking. Our store staff were wearing shields, a lot of problems but I think what it left behind the customer with a view that, listen, these guys are going 120% of the journey of keeping me safe, and safety has actually become a surrogate for trust and therefore a competitive advantage. Of course, every other jeweler is also now started doing, but I think we reached out to all our customers and told them about our protocols and ensured that we won't open a store until it's ready for opening. So I think these are non-technology, human contact, simple logical things which have worked very well and that has strengthened the trust. In fact, we are seeing market share gains because we find the growth in new customers is phenomenal. They go around the market and come back and say, we feel safer here.
Thank you. I think, that projection of a caring brand and the fact that a lot of people other players in the industry are adopting the same practices goes to the story of transformation. Indeed, good. The next query that we have is about the logistics function, the way you're organized. There is a proposed Vladivostok-Chennai maritime corridor, which will reduce shipping time, and India can leverage on the mineral resources in the Arctic Sea region. Is Titan Tanishq leveraging such geographic routes? How's your logistics function organized?
So, okay, we don't import gold or diamonds directly. Gold is not permitted. It's only through banks. The rest of we buy fresh gold from banks, which is about 45% of the requirement. Rest of it is recycled gold. Which is to do with exchange. Actually, it's the other way around. Sorry, 45% is exchange recycled gold, 55% is imported, and that is through banks. So we have nothing to do with. Similarly, for diamonds, it is the diamond cutters and polishers who import roughs, cut, polish, and sell. And we buy diamonds from these site holders from the Indian market directly from manufacturers. So we really don't have much. So most of our logistics is in the country. We have a huge network because we're talking about daily milk runs that we do to 220 towns. Well, not all 220 towns are served daily, but many of them serve daily, some of them once in two. We have warehouses across the country. We are delivering direct to customer with our e-commerce orders across all the possible zip codes in India as well as international. And we have a whole reverse logistics supply chain because unlike, let's say, other categories in jewelry, you need to also pull back stock from the stores which have become old, or customer returns or customer exchange jewelry, which we don't recycle to the customer, which we melt. So there's a major, recall of products continuously happening because we don't pre-owned jewelry, we don't sell. We always melt it and bring it back. So there's a major reverse logistics that happens, and we melt. We have our own refining, alloying, etc. that happens, and then it gets converted into new jewelry. So logistics is a massive function. It is, of course, outsourced in terms of the actual physical transportation, but we have a very large logistics team. There's a separate logistics for customer order management, which is that personal orders that we take. And there's a third layer, which is to do with e-commerce logistics, which is direct to customer. So yeah, it's pretty large, it's massive, and it's a hot seat job. But sorry, we don't know much about Vladivostok. We are looking at, however, establishing some warehouses in Gift City. We have something in Sri City in Chennai, and we think Gift City can be a very useful place. And we have, in fact, in the process of setting up a branch there. We are in touch with the authorities there. So, because that's where the gold can get consolidated and be distributed across the country.
Thank you for pointing out what is relevant in logistics and how it applies to you, and also how you actually source, which goes to reinforce the ethical aspect somewhere else that you've touched upon in terms of the gold that you source, the ethical gold or the green gold, whichever way one looks at it. And I think that kind of responds well to the question. The last one, which in this cluster, I'm putting it from the chat box.
Can I request if we can wind at this stage, because I need to go somewhere to pick up my son. Unfortunately, my driver is not here. So since we have now covered a fair bit of ground, is that okay, or are there too many people who need a lot of responses?
Okay, let me respond to that. Yeah, Mr. Ajoy, I think there are lots of questions, but I think we will put an end to this. We would have.
Maybe we'll take just this 1 or 2 questions and then we'll close. Maybe last 2 questions, if it's okay.
Okay, I have short answer questions, and I think that will be very useful at this tail end. So very quickly, how do you support women in diversity, especially we have the context of unsupportive families or certain socio-cultural contexts?
Well, we have a D&I process in the company. I don't look at it, but I can tell you that a lot of our frontline staff, at least about 60% of our frontline staff are women, and many of them may be employed by franchisees, many of them on our roles. We do ensure that there's a very strong policy towards ensuring we support women, and many of them don't want to become store managers and area managers because they would prefer to operate within a certain comfort. So that is one area. Our marketing, design, and even some of our field retail teams are actually dominated by women. We have many people in that area. So we've never really had a significant need to kind of try and balance things out. But I can at best say that much right now on this piece. But yes, we have a diversity and inclusion initiative within the overall corporate philosophy and within the Tata Group as well. And perhaps there are better people who can speak more knowledgeably about that. As a senior manager, I'm aware of it and I try to implement it in our HR systems.
Great, thank you very much for that. The next question is, what are the employability and skill development upgradation programs in jewelry designing, just from the student point of view, if anyone is interested, where and how it can be pursued?
So there are many jewelry design institutes, and I think a lot of people join there. They become jewelry designers, then they get trained onto computer-aided design, and that's how the journey begins. And we also take people from many jewelry design institutes into Tanishq. But forget us, there's a whole ecosystem out there of manufacturers who are catering to international markets and other players. As I said, we are only a 5% player in this large ecosystem. So the opportunity is massive. Skill upgradation, yes, once they join in, then, I think the best skill that a designer can do is to understand how the jewelry is made, because then she can or he can become a better designer. They understand the way it's created, manufactured, crafted. So your designs are aligned towards working closely with the way it's manufactured. So understanding the technologies, etc. Now there's a lot of interesting technologies like direct casting route, 3D printing. Many things are coming up, and it's a whole world out there. But opportunities are many, and I think it can be a good design career for some students. But this is mostly design, not managerial students. Okay, I'm just clarifying that.
Right. That actually answers the next question of what opportunities MBAs would have if they specialize in marketing in HR, especially opportunities in Tanishq. That was one question, and that is the last question.
That is that's typically any consumer company will have similar. It's in retail, it's in merchandising, it's in sales. It can be in marketing, product management, supply chain, sourcing. That's where many of our MBAs who join kind of move into, and then they move across different roles and functions and kind of evolve into business managers and leaders. I saw one place about diamond purity. How do you ensure?
Yes. How would a common man ensure that?
It's very difficult. It's very difficult. In fact, that's the place which, once a diamond is set in your jewelry, nobody can tell you what it is. So when you get many of these certifications, which they say, you must ensure it is from a loose diamond, the certification, not from a set piece. Secondly, besides the 4 C's that all of people might have heard, cut, color, clarity, carat, There are many other properties like phosphorescence, luminescence, milkiness, brilliance, and the way the light properties are. So I think those are pieces which we look at. And of course, now a new one, contamination with synthetic diamonds should not happen. So a layperson, forget layperson, a very strong industry insider will find it difficult. We need machines, you need many, many different equipments and a deep training in diamonds to understand, which is why we only offer Tanishq guarantee on our diamonds and we never take any other jewelry which is diamonds. It's a complex piece and it is possible that customers can be, exploited on that front. So you should be very careful when you buy diamonds. It may seem cheap, but you're buying at your own risk.
Great. That's a lot of insight and education for us, Mr. Ajoy. I think Ms. Manisha is very happy about that answer. Thank you. Professor Prasad, I think if we don't have time to ask any more questions, shall we wind up? With your permission, shall we close it?
Certainly. Yeah. I think we have covered it all.
So, sir, I must thank you profusely for this amazing session, which started with education and entertaining pieces of ads that you have shared, and very nicely capturing the way you have built your brand by adding a lot of value, bringing in emotions and connecting the same to various occasions of celebrating the life kind of moments. And that has been a fantastic journey. As I said, adornment by chance to adornment by desire is the great movement, and your contribution in this has been pretty large and significant. And each and every response that you have given during the Q&A session has been well crafted. So these well crafted responses are like finely crafted jewelry itself. So thank you very much. We couldn't have asked for more. We really enjoyed your session, and some of the questions, if I have additionally, I'll send it by email. Whenever you have time, you can respond to those one or two questions which are left unasked. So must thank you, must thank Tanishq and the Titan Company Limited for sparing your valuable time in this festive season. We are very, very happy, and we couldn't have expected more than this. We thoroughly learned, and many takeaways we have jotted down. So on behalf of ICFAI Group and on behalf of all the participants, I take this opportunity to thank you and give you a Guru Namaskar for the session and the time and patience. Ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of this webinar, very interesting one. See you again next week on Friday at 6:30 p.m. with yet another interesting and distinguished leader from the industry. He's going to be Mr. Peri Maheshwar. He's the chairman of Careers 360. He's going to talk about ethics as a plank and a platform for building character of various people and citizens and the country at large. See you next Friday, 6:30 p.m. Thank you all. Have a good evening.